have grown to become the primary providers in local service delivery and development. Essential and key services under the purview of the county government, but not all: health, water sanitation, roads, trade development and regulations, early childhood education, among other services that are relevant to the lives and livelihood of communities around the country. A more crucial contribution by the county government is the facilitation of participation and consultation of the people in the county governance processes. This has ensured a pursuit of democratically agreed priorities in service delivery and development, and a governance process that is responsive and sensitive to the people's needs and priorities at the grassroots level. Significant strides have been witnessed in the various sectors being managed by the counties. In the last financial year, 2020-2021, county governments allocated an average of 7.3% of their budget to agriculture, an increase of 1.3%, because we realize that agriculture is a major engine of growth. Among others, these investments have gone to in agriculture have gone to mechanization, increased input, access to farmers, seed distribution, and extension services. But despite these milestones, the policy and legislative environment has been very friendly to these devolved functions. While recognizing the role of national government in developing legal frameworks that set standards and practices for the agricultural sector, the Council of Governors reiterates that this should be done in consultation with county government. In the health sector, malaria incident burden has reduced to 40%, 40 per 1,000. County governments have incrementally funded interventions against the non-communicable diseases, improved screening, diagnostic capacity, and improved capacity for care. The result of these health care investments are reduced waiting time for surgery, improved clinical outcomes, reduced referrals, and efficiency at county health facilities. Maternal and child health programs have also yielded marginal increases in skilled birth attendance, contraceptions, use, prevalence, and immunization coverage. We, however, do admit that the health sector has been plagued by funding and human resource challenges, issues both levels of government are appraised of. In the wake of these challenges, the county governments have remained at the forefront in the management of the novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. Our health systems have faced an unprecedented challenge and their capacity tested to the limit. However, county governments have remained resilient and continue to offer innovative solutions as we tackle the global crisis occasioned by COVID-19. Since the announcement of the first case of COVID-19, county governments have achieved the following. 1, increased isolation beds, increased installation of additional oxygen plants, procured more oxygen cylinders and oxygen concentrators, connected more than 3,000 beds to oxygen, among other measures that have been instituted to manage the pandemic. May I now turn to the early childhood development and education ECD sector. County governments allocated 4.97 billion in ECD sector in 2020-2021 financial year. With the demand for pre-primary education increasing, enrollment in the county ECD centers increased by 1.02% to 29,130 from 28,383. This includes 470 special needs units established across all the 47 counties for learners with special needs. Distinguished guests, as I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks, this year's Devolution conference focuses on the subject of climate change and specifically looks at the role of subnational government in climate action. For the next 3 days, we'll look at a myriad of topics such as urban resilience, sustainable food systems, indigenous knowledge, renewable energy, gender and youth, and effective waste management, all with a climate change lens. These topics are both timely and relevant for these countries, and indeed the broader region development and sustenance. Africa's socio-economic development is largely based on agriculture and land-based economic activities. A vast majority of African population is rural-based and relies on subsistence agriculture and other basic socio-economic activities that sustain livelihood. These forms of lifestyle and livelihood rely heavily on stability and predictability of climate and weather patterns, among other environmental factors. It is therefore necessary that any strategies at whatever level that seek to address developmental and governance issues should consider environmental and climatical issues at county levels. Agenda 2063, the African Union's plan for transformation, commits to tackle the challenge posed by climate change through a broad-based approach that encompasses a variety of efforts to address the ever-present threat of damage to the environment and climatic changes. At the global level, therefore, climate change is a core part of the agenda of 2030 in respect of Kenya, which compels states to come together under key commitments in the Paris Agreement of 2015. More critically and relevant to us all is that local governments are identified as primary stakeholders and have indeed become important players in climate process. Indeed, subnational governments from all over the world have proved in a number of ways that their contribution and leadership is essential to help achieve the objectives of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. According to UNDP, 50% to 80% of adaptation and mitigation action necessary to tackle the impacts of the changing climate are or will be implemented at subnational levels of governance. Being closer to the people, subnational governments are well placed to identify the needs and strengths of their citizens in the battle against climate change. And this is why we are thanking the World Bank for putting most of the money, which will be inaugurated today, to the county governments, all the way up to the world level. This is because in most cases, subnational governments are functionally responsible for service provisions in areas that directly influence greenhouse gas emissions levels, such as transport, agriculture, environment, energy, industry, land, and resource management. I have to finish. Distinguished guests, at the national level, Kenya is signatory to various regional and global instruments that seek to protect the environment, fight climate change, and ensure that environmental rights are guaranteed and protected. Article 2, subsection 2 of Kenya's 2010 Constitution provides that regional and international instruments that Kenya is party to are part of Kenyan law. We also have environmental and land rights as part of our expansive Bill of Rights. This is complemented by the enactment of the Climate Change Act in 2016, which lays down the specific normative framework that is to guide climate action. Over the last few years, county governments have expressed their commitment to the climate action agenda and have, in the process, demonstrated that they are indispensable and dependable players in their process. The various measures that county governments have taken to contribute to the climate action campaign not only demonstrates the technical and sophisticated nature of the solutions needed to tackle climate change, but also the effectiveness and importance of the measures taken. First, county governments have developed and are in the process of developing specific laws on climate change. As at July 2021, 29 county governments and enacted climate change acts, and the remaining ones are at advanced stage of finalizing. Through the Climate Change Act, the county governments have established their own county climate change funds to provide for financing investment to reduce climate change. While all the counties are yet to take full measures to ensure effective climate action, the vital signs made by the county governments I have just mentioned will accelerate action in the rest of the counties through mutual learning and action. The impact of the changing climate on food systems, water, urban and infrastructure, energy, health, compel county governments to mainstream climate action in their county integrated environment actions. Distinguished guests, as I conclude, the county governments appreciate the National Treasury for including county governments in the development and rollout of financing locally led climate action. Such initiative will go a long way in supporting county governments to invest more in programs and projects that will caution vulnerable communities from the impact of climate. The Senate also needs to consider climate change when it is negotiating for the county shares of revenue. County governments bear the greatest burden, but county governments should also become innovative in tackling the effects of climate change. As I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, may I appreciate our partners who have supported this conference, who include County Pension Fund, AMREF, Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, UNDP, among others. Thank you for your great contribution to the conference. You are true friends of Devolution. A special thanks also go to our development partners, private sector, civil society, media, faith-based institutions. We appreciate your cooperation with the counties, and we anticipate deeper cooperation with you in the future. Distinguished guests, I wish you all fruitful discussions during the 2 coming days of the conference. With that long speech, which I'm not used to, may I now invite Waziri Dr. Friend Matiang'I to make his remarks, and invite our key address speaker, and also do the rest of the program. Thank you, and God bless you. Asanteni sana.
Considering that the law of diminishing returns may be setting in, I will execute this session with a measure of precision so that we can get going to the next level. Right Honorable Prime Minister Mzee Raila Odinga, the chairperson of the Council of Governors, and all of you governors who are here today, my cabinet colleagues, all of whom have been introduced, and my colleagues across the spectrum of national government responsibility who are here, the principal secretaries, directors who are with us here today, Mr. Speaker, and the members of the Senate, honorable members of Parliament, members of the county assemblies, distinguished delegates, including our development partners, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Chairman, you had invited us to participate in a panel on the impact of climate change on global peace and stability. We have submitted to the conference secretariat a very lengthy presentation and a paper on how we are approaching from the security point of view the challenges we face related to climate change. I would like to take this opportunity to request you, Mr. Chairman, to afford us an opportunity to engage in a much more detailed manner with the Committee of the Council of Governors that addresses security, because this matter is even calling upon us to redesign our national security strategy, because truth be told, as my colleagues who are from that sector who are in this audience know, some of the things we are having to deal with, or some of the things we are facing, are things we were not prepared to deal with 10 years ago. So even when our national security was designed, national security strategy was designed, there are a number of things that no one anticipated that we are having to deal with now. That calls upon us not just to relook at the strategy, but to see how better we can build stronger intergovernmental collaborations to address the challenges we face today and those that we are likely to face tomorrow. The question you asked us basically to answer was, how does it affect us from a security point of view? And in 2 minutes, Mr. Chairman, first, the destruction that we are facing as a result of climate change challenges. No one knew that at this point in time we would spend between 25% and 30% of our operational budget on climate change related security issues. What we are experiencing in Laikipia, what we are experiencing in Baringo, What is going on in most of North Rift today, the movement, the theft of livestock, the pasture and water resource conflicts in that region are all related to climate change. The challenges we face on our borders towards the north and the north and eastern with our colleagues across the border are all related to climate change. And as we go forward, obviously, we're going to have to relook at how we will increase our budgets to deal with this. Two, the greater impact is even in resource and institutional strain. If you look at the number of personnel we are deploying to this conflict, it is affecting and distracting us from the core challenges we face in the security sector. The question you ask every morning is, are you going to deploy to chase Al-Shabaab, or you are going to deploy to chase cattle rustlers and livestock problems in Laikipia and other places of the country? So I know it will affect also county governments in terms of how they look at resources, which means it calls upon a new framework and a new approach of budgeting and allocating resources for security, especially to address climate change-related challenges. We have outlined at length a new strategy and a new approach on how we are going to have to deal with this. We are going to build capacity and train better so that we are prepared for this. We are going to develop new structures for conflict resolution. I was speaking with Governor Derito Mureithi in Laikipia and saying counties that are affected by this will have to start new frameworks of superintending over resource sharing agreements so that we can avert conflicts, which means we have to redesign conflict resolution mechanisms as we go along. Three, we are going to have to relook at intergovernmental alignment between us and county governments. For a long time, I must confess here that we have had challenges to support, for example, the county security committees and the county government's pressure on us to allow them to come up with their new security infrastructures. I think now we can't avoid that, and we can't hide from that responsibility anymore. We have to support county governments to come up with security arrangements to deal with some of these conflicts, because national government in and on itself cannot manage these challenges as it were. Fourthly, we have got to deal with resource alignment. We have to put our money where our mouth is. We are facing challenges which we cannot hide from, and we cannot overdepend on development partners. In our budgeting systems and in our frameworks of dealing with security, we as county governments and national governments, we must now debate how on a year-to-year basis we set aside resources deliberately to deal with the conflicts that are brought about by climate change. Now, in that lengthy presentation that we have filed with the conference secretariat, we have discussed the details of what the National Security Advisory Committee has decided to do and what the National Security Council would like to do, how we will deploy some of the resources we have in the country to avert and to quickly respond to some of the challenges. KDF is involved up in Baringo. We are trying to do some water pans. We are trying to see how best we can deploy the resources we have to avert climate change-related conflicts. Mr. Chairman, we need time to go deep into this, and on my own behalf and on behalf of my colleagues, we will be available to sit with your committee that deals with security, to go deep into this, and I'm sure we will benefit more from your grassroots-based approaches in the manner in which we will have to redesign our national security strategy. I will leave it at that and do two important things. One, invite the Right Honorable Prime Minister to speak to us, and thereafter, I have been told that His Excellency the President has just logged in, and we will invite him to address us. But first, we start with the Right Honorable